exclusively live on Magic. This is the UK Top 20 Rewind with Shaun Tilley and Mike Read.
Hi.
Hello, welcome once again, and prepare yourself for another 2 vintage charts from the past, randomly selected by our studio computer. In the next hour, we're going to be hooking up with Richard Skinner for memories of March 1985. But right now, I'm Shaun Tilley, and we're all set to unearth November 1979. And in order to do that, we've enlisted the expertise of Mr. Mike Read. So, Michael, how are you?
I'm very well. Am I the 1979 expert?
Well, we drafted you in. This was the general feeling around the office, you see. I said, November 1979, I'm not entirely sure I remember much about that. Get Mike Read in, he's the boy. So, first of all, what do you remember about Chic and My Forbidden Lover?
Chic, well, I do remember that My Forbidden Lover was not as big a hit as some of those that had gone before. They'd had big hits with Freak, Good Times, I Want Your Love, stuff like that. A whole run of top 10 hits. And put together, of course, by the great Nile Rodgers and the late Bernie Edwards, two real talents. They put the whole thing together. I think My Forbidden Lover was the first one, if I remember, not to make the top 10.
You are absolutely right, Michael. It got to number 15, though on this chart, it was down 5 places.
20. Chic, My Forbidden Lover, down 5 from a high of 15 to 20 in the chart of November 1979.
It's the UK Top 20 Rewind with Shaun Tilley here and Mike Read over there. Now, one of my favourite albums of this year also provided us with a single in the shape of One Step Beyond from Madness. Didn't you do their very first Top of the Pops?
I did, yeah, their very first Top of the Pops with them, and I had the single out, High Rise by the Trainspotters, and they started playing it, and I thought, hey, these new boys, they know my song. But I remember I'd been at a barbecue about a month before, and one of the ladies there was the floor manager at Top of the Pops, and she said, oh, my son's got a group, and she was the mother of Woody in the band, and she said, you know, they've got a single coming out, look out for it. And you think, yeah, you know, but you don't realize they're going to be the biggest band of the 80s. And they were new in at number 19 in November 1979 with One Step Beyond.
The UK Top 20 Rewind.
Shaun Tilley Mike Read, 1979.
16.
And next up, straight into the chart, B.A. Robertson.
Yeah, B.A., he rather suffered in this country from being humorous and being a slightly comic character, so nobody took him seriously, but he was in fact a brilliant writer. He had to move to the States in the end to prove himself, but of course he had a lot of big hits here, things like Bang Bang and the Shakespearean To Be or Not To Be, and a new entry this week in November 79, Knocked It On.
15.
Hi, this is Mike Read on the UK Top 20 Rewind with Shaun Tilley. We're back in November 1979, and that's the highest new entry this week at 14. Enough is Enough. No More Tears, Donna Summer and Barbara Streisand.
Yes.
Ensemble.
Now, this was the month and year when the Tory government announced £3.5 million spending cuts and an increase in prescription charges. Building societies put the mortgage rate up to a record 15%. In Dublin, the trial began of 2 men accused of murdering Lord Mountbatten, and the Times newspaper appeared for the first time in almost a year. Back to the countdown, the Ramblers were sliding to number 13 with The Sparrow, and also on the way down, it was Viola Wills with a song that was huge on the dance floors, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was, I mean, originally hit back in 57. Again, for almost one-hit wonders like she was for Patience and Prudence. A big hit in the States, not such a big hit here. But the other one that I really loved of hers, I guess it must have come out 75-ish, was Run for the Nearest Exit, Viola Wills. That was a really good disco track. Not a hit, but a good track. And her version of Gonna Get Along Without You Now, I thought was good. I mean, it was an ideal to take a favoured song, a well-known song, especially such a big hit in the States, and do it again, 22 years later.
Well, the Specials. You must have some memories about the Specials, because, I mean, this is great. We've played Madness earlier on, the Specials now. The two-tone era, very much happening in November 1979.
Yeah, and another two-tone band on the way in this chart as well. Yeah, I loved it. I remember I had a two-tone tie and a two-tone jacket and went out on one of the two-tone tours. And in fact, I remember going into one of the motorway cafes with a lot of my two-tone stuff on, looking very, very much the mod. Yeah. And went in there to buy some food on my way back from somewhere, and the place was full of like Hell's Angels, who just turned around very slowly and looked at me, and I pretended that that I'd forgotten something. I tapped my pockets and went back out, got in my car, put my foot down. they looked pretty evil to me, and I looked like a real mincing mod going in there, really. But the specials were great. I think this came from their first album, if I remember.
Called Specials.
Being produced by Elvis Costello.
Yeah, that's right. And it featured Rico, did this particular. In fact, the whole album did, but Rico is about 70 years old, even in 1979.
I thought that was great. Well, it's easy. You're black, you can get away with it. If you're old and black, you're a legend. If you're old and white, you ain't.
UK Top 20 Rewind. High Climber. 10. Shaun Tilley Mike Read. 9.
You mentioned that we had another two-tone band coming up as well, didn't you?
Indeed, the Selector up to number 8 with On My Radio, and of course they were inextricably linked with the Specials because they were all from the Coventry area. And when the Specials did their first single, which I think was Gangsters, they, strangely, rather than doing their own B-side for some reason, they went to other local musicians and said, could you do a B-side for us? So on the B-side of the Specials, first single, Gangsters, were the Selector. And then when the Selector started getting play as well, they actually then had to form a group, because at the time they went on the B-side of the Specials, they were not actually a group, they were a collection of local musicians. But then they formed a band, put Pauline Black in as vocalist, and went on the road on the two-tone tour. This is Mike Read and Shaun Tilley on the UK Top 20 Rewind, November 1979. That was Sad Cafe and Everyday Hurts.
And after reaching number 3, it was down to number 5. Other great singles as well, though. Strange Little Girl, I really liked. My Oh My.
Yeah, I remember My Oh My by Slade. Do you remember that? We all sing together.
Yes, I do remember that.
I mean, that was number 2, My Oh My by Slade.
You don't remember My Oh My by Sad Cafe?
Yeah, but My Oh My by Slade was better. And a much, much bigger hit.
Hang on. Do you know what this is? This is the format of the show. We're just ripping it up here. Do you know, we mentioned Sad Cafe, Everyday Hurts, getting as high as number 3, and this next record had been as high as number 3 as well, but here we find down one place, ABBA with Gimme, 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 and Man After Midnight.
Mike Read and Shaun Tilley with the UK Top 20 Rewind. ABBA, Gimme, 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 down to number 4 this week on the chart of November 1979.
They were huge at this time, weren't they?
They were enormous, and I think part of their appeal was their English wasn't very good, and their musical phrasing was not the sort of phrasing you'd get in England. I mean, if you speak in a foreign language, you tend to talk like that, and you maybe tend to write like that as well. And what made them so different was their phrasing, their musical phrasing went to sit in with their speech patterns, which are quite different to ours. So you tended to get different ideas coming out of the band.
Now, we've been counting up this chart from November 1979, and we played some terrific records along the way, of course. But I know that this next one we're about to play as we get into the top 3 is one that certainly, as far as you're concerned, is a bit special.
Yeah, if I had to pick one from this chart to take to my desert island, it would be the Eton Rifles by the Jam. A wonderful song. We used to do it with our band on stage, so when we played on the Radio 1 road shows, we'd always do Eton Rifles. And often we'd open with White Wedding by Billy Idol, and then maybe going to Eton Rifles. And I just loved singing it and loved playing it. But what I didn't realise was that Simon Bates at the other end, who was, been doing his programme, they had recorded our version of Eton Rifles. I didn't know that, and weeks later I was walking near Broadcasting House and I saw Bates coming the other way, and he said, hello, love. And I said, what have you got there? You got some records? He said, oh, yeah, and he tried to hide them. And there were copies of my group doing Eton Rifles. I never discovered what he was going to do with them, but I managed to pull in one from him, which I think I've probably subsequently lost somewhere.
All right, let's have a listen to the Jam's version of it, which was climbing up our November 1979 survey. Climbing to number 2 on this hour's featured countdown, Queen, Crazy Little Thing Called Love. That's almost it from us. And coming up in the next hour, Richard Skinner. You remember him?
I remember Richard Skinner.
So he's
known to his friends as Dick.
Very good friends, mind you. So he's limbering up. In the meantime, though, we've got our biggest and best-selling record from November 1979 to play. Go on, you set it up in only the way that you can.
Well, let's start by saying the record is Dr. Hook, When You're in Love with a Beautiful Woman. And, of course, they went their own ways, the two frontmen. Ray Sawyer, he was the one with a patch. Dennis LeCourrier, he was the one without the patch. Dennis is a great raconteur and storyteller. I mean, he'll tell you the tale, as he's told me many times, the tale of all the big hits. But I think when you look at things like Sylvia's Mother, Sexy Eyes, When You're in Love with a Beautiful Woman, cover of the Rolling Stone, you realize that these songs, without saying it's Dr. Hook the musical, would actually work very, very nicely into a good story. Their songs would work. So, in fact, so much so that I'm going to go off and start it right now and leave you to it.
Do I actually get, if this is a success, do I get a percentage of the royalties that you'll make, bearing in mind that it was a program that you did with me, where you found the inspiration to go off and work on such a project?
Well, this is the American way of thinking. If you came into the room with the coffee while the writers were writing it these days, you get a percentage. So I think you should take the bulk of it.
1.